This podcast series was recorded with our colleague Cameron Cunningham, who at the time was the Addictions and Recovery Program Coordinator at NBA. Although he no longer works with us, we still believe strongly in the content we created, and we hope you enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Holy Scrolls, where faith meets tech. I'm Cameron Cunningham.
And I am Bere Gil Soto. We are so glad that you're back and here with us for this conversation about social media, young adults, and the ways technology is shaping our mental health, our relationships, and our spiritual lives. Almost, honestly, anything in our life.
Yes, absolutely. This podcast is a special collaboration between NBA's Addiction and Recovery Initiative and the Young Adult Leadership Development Program.
And today we are also collaborating with another one of our program departments. Another one of our departments. This podcast, we're diving today into exploring how technology is designed to keep us scrolling and the psychology behind the dopamine hits that we all get. And today we're joined by Alec Bateman, who serves here at NBA as the Director of Marketing. And in his role, he helps us establish and implement comprehensive marketing and communications efforts for NBA so that we can develop and execute effective strategies for the organization's many audiences. Before joining NBA, Alec worked at Starbucks Corporation, where over his decade plus tenure, he worked his way up from barista to store manager to multiple roles in the corporate office spanning communications, marketing, and project management. Alec is a delight. You all will get to meet him and get a sense and feel of him. He's a delight to be around and to have a conversation with. He is an expert, I would say. I would call him an
Yes.
expert on this matter. And above all, beyond, I think that more than him being an expert, he's passionate about this. So I think that the conversation is going to be exciting and rich. And he also, as you may imagine, has very good recipes for coffee. So if you want to link up with him after this and just ask about all of the inside information, just connect with us and with him.
Yes, Alec, thank you for being here with us today. We're so excited. We're so excited to have you join this conversation and have this wonderful dialogue, your expertise, and even your passion. It does really align with what we want to talk about today. So thank you again for accepting our invitation. So let's dive in. We got a lot to talk about today, and we let's just get started. So before we dive into the psychology, let's just start with framing the design itself. You know that social media platforms are not accidental; they are engineered, environments intentionally. So I just want to, for starters, just pose the questions. How are social media platforms intentionally designed, if you will, to keep us scrolling?
Sure. Thank you both. Super excited to be here. I describe myself as a digital native, so I kind of like came of age while these technologies were being invented. So I had MySpace when I was like 16, and
Oh, we talk
the
about
kind of
Tom. We talk about
perfect
Tom.
first
Yes,
friend,
on the
right?
first
Dating
Yes,
episode, we
myself
first
did.
a little
friend.
bit there. Yeah, so I kind of grew up with these, and then also social media was my gateway to marketing. So I was a store
Mm.
manager, and I was just posting on Instagram and Facebook because I just knew how to tell my story online. And that was how I networked my way into corporate America and how I found my way into marketing. So social media has been the gateway to me to my entire corporate career. So very passionate about the subject. To answer the question, Cameron, I think it's really complex because I don't know that at the beginning that each of these platforms that was the intent, right? I think there's this evolution that's happened. You can get into the history of Facebook, and everyone knows the social network and Mark Zuckerberg, and originally just trying to like connect with classmates. But there are a couple of different like inventions across time that I think were these pivotal moments where we got to the situation we're in today. So one of them I think is the scrolling, the infinite scrolling. In the early days of Facebook, I don't know if everyone remembers, but you just saw what your friends saw. It was just your friends and family. It was photos of your nieces and nephews and your mom and friends posting on your wall, right? There was a wall which was a
There
place you could
was.
go, just like your profile. The
Yes.
Then you can
wall became the
timeline,
feed
right?
and the timeline. Yeah. So that is when this started, right? And then there used to be an end. I don't know if you remember, it used to be like a, that's all for today. You've seen everything. Somewhere along the line, they were like, oh, we want to keep people here. So let's get rid of that. You never can see everything anymore. There's no end, right? So that's one thing that happened. Another early on is like the like feature. We kind of take that for granted. Everything can get a like, but showing someone that you've taken an action and liked something, and then the user getting a notification, that's that dopamine hit and that ego boost. Like immediately, I remember being in like my 20s, and I'm cringe. I've deleted so much I've posted, right? I've gone back through
Right,
and
right.
scoured it.
Those
I
memories
post
come
5 times
back.
in a day, and I just am trying to get likes, just trying to get attention because we're, our brains are developing. We're trying to figure out who we are. So I'm throwing Bible verses out there and things I saw at the gym, and I'm just trying to get a like or a comment because at that age, that means identity. That means someone noticed. That means someone saw me. That means someone likes me. So there's a couple of these like key inventions that they evolved over time. Another one is Twitter. Twitter was the first to do hashtags, and the hashtags kind of opened you up to the world. So if you were a comedian who could tell a joke in 3 sentences in the early Twitter days, you could get an audience like that. It's almost like, I'm already ranting. I'm sorry. It's almost like what happened with the innovation with music, right? I'm from Nashville. Like you used to have record labels, but there was a wild, wild west with Spotify and MySpace, Colby Catlett, where all of a sudden, if you were good enough and your music got to the right audiences, you didn't need the megaphone of the label. So with the algorithm and the TikTok, the Twitters, all of a sudden, everyone is like now competing to be the funniest and the best, and virality happened. So there's all these different things that happened that started to create the situation we find ourselves in. I'll pause there, but I'm just fascinated by each of these components as they evolved to get to what nowadays my son's going to grow up with all that baked in. He's never going to
Just
see the end
crazy.
of a feed. He's never going to know that what it is like for people to not like what you post. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this hearing you makes me think of, I don't know if you all have watched the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma.
Yes.
So there's this guy, I didn't know. I guess that there can be experts on everything, right? So there is this, I think it's a social media or a tech ethicist there. I wrote his name here, Tristan, or yeah, Tristan Harris. And on that, and one of the episodes where he appears, he said something that when I heard it back then, when I watched it, it just stuck with me. And he said, "We are worth more when we are addicted." And that's just like hearing you saying, now we don't see the end of the feed. Now we don't see, because this is now, as you said, it is now the sign, even though it probably was not from the beginning, to keep us hooked. But
Right.
now it is the sign to keep us addicted. And we
Yeah.
all, with those likes and with those scrolls, I feel like we're now all good Pavlov
We're consumers.
dogs,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Skinner dogs that,
Yeah.
whichever, I can't know, it was Pavlov, dogs
Yeah.
that it's now a little
Ding ding. Yeah.
reinforcement
Yeah.
and we react.
No, for sure. And even they call your audience, they're called users, like a drug user. Like that's what you say, you're users of the platform, your daily active users.
Oh
Like
man, that's
we
nuts.
are a product. Our time is value, right? So the more time someone spends, and I've been behind the scenes on this, right? So what you're reporting on for the success of your platform is how many people are showing up and how long they stay
Yeah.
there and how often they engage. So your time, your energy, your action are the commodification for these platforms to be successful. So I think the really interesting thing is we're talking about social media, but then the word community is super key. Like when we're talking about like the positive and the negative sides, is that like originally Facebook was for community. Originally Instagram was too, right? Like the hashtags as well. Like you could
Right.
find people who liked the same thing you liked and you could connect with them. That's very different than the commodification and your time and
Yes.
energy being a product.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. And then this whole, like, talking about the, I have this saying of me being a Pavlov dog. Whenever I see something that I like, and I'm like, oh my God. And so I think that sometimes we feel like that with social media engagement and with those notifications, especially if people, I have silenced all notifications in my on my phone,
Smart.
so I don't know what happens. And even if I log on to my social medias, I rarely check. Even I think I have like the plus on red, like you just have too many notifications because I just don't care about that now. But there was a time in which I did. And it would be so satisfactory and like exciting to get the such and such just commented.
Yep.
Yes.
Or and then it turned into not only such and such commented on your things, but then the notifications started being about what they are doing. Oh,
Right.
Ali just
Another thing they
uploaded a picture.
changed. Yeah, yeah. Other people's activity. And then it was still your friends. And then you could get notifications about anything. I'll get a LinkedIn notification. I'll think, oh, someone engaged with LinkedIn. Nope, it's just this post is trending. Like I didn't even choose to be notified about that.
Yes. Yes.
So we're talking about notifications, and we all love it. We all oftentimes can spend a lot of time, crafting our content, or we're going to write a post, making sure that it has no typos. So we spend a lot of time making sure that our content shares who we are in some way, and it does something. It is a satisfaction that is attached to being notified that someone liked you or your post. So I want to stay in that vein, and I want to pull us deeper a little bit. What is it from your perspective, your opinion, that makes notifications so satisfying?
I think it's a little bit of what we're already talking about. And Betty's brought up Pavlov's dog. There's like a training of your own brain, which is scary when you think about the age people are getting on social media because your brains aren't developed. So I was
Teenagers
learning.
like crazy
Yeah, I was
kids.
a teenager figuring out what identity meant at the time when this was implemented. So notifications became immediately the like a confirmation, affirmation that someone liked something that you said or enjoyed what you engaged in or posted or your thought. It's an approval, and we are desperately needing approval and a sort of connection. It's also a dopamine hit. Like there's
Hmm.
brain chemistry involved,
That's right.
and I think they talk about it in the Social Dilemma, but at some point, like maybe they started out well, but at some point it did get nefarious where they're
Oh,
hiring brain
yes.
chemistry
Oh, yeah,
people
yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
like,
Everything can
yeah, how
everything.
do we manipulate people's brains? Like even the scrolling, it's the same. It's the same variable reward system as a slot machine. So when
Hmm.
you see something and it's new every time, that triggers the same thing in your brain, the novelty of pulling a lever. Maybe I'll win, maybe I'll win, maybe I'll win. That's the same thing that you're
Mhm.
getting with algorithms. So there's a dopamine piece with the notifications, but then there's the social piece and the connection and I think I mentioned that like it ties into your worth and your value and your identity. I had a friend who would post something, if it didn't get enough likes in like a couple minutes, he'd delete it. He didn't want anyone to see it. Like you can't do that in real life. You
Shame.
can't just like draft and
Wow.
exactly immediately embarrassment. Oh, it wasn't funny enough. People didn't like it. I didn't get the comments that I wanted. So there's
Tell
like
us
this,
about it.
there's no difference between the audience and your thoughts. Like that's the weird thing for me is that like
Mm.
you're creating something immediately for the sake of the people who are responding to it. Like as an artist, that's a really bad way to do art, right? For me, when I write poetry, I'm writing the poetry for the sake of the piece. But if I'm writing it for the sake of the audience immediately, it almost corrupts the thing. But that
Oh,
for
totally.
notifications, we're thinking of it to begin with at the onset. Who's liking it? Who's commenting it? And we're almost like teaching ourselves what's acceptable and how we should think and how we should speak based on public affirmation and approval.
Wow. That's just even like for pastors, right? Like the whole
Hmm.
thing, you should not write a sermon for someone. Like
Right.
you just write the sermon because of the message of it and not thinking about, oh, well, I hope that brother, whoever, or sister, whoever comes to church and listens to
Yeah.
it. So I think it is
Like
the
it's so
same
much less
thing.
authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
it
other
becomes
piece,
compulsive.
yeah. The other piece that I think is really interesting is I use the term forcing function, right? So in our lives, we have forcing functions, whether we know it or not. The dishes being dirty is a forcing function to wash the dishes. Now you can
Right.
create a discipline where you wash the dishes every time you dirty a dish, and then there isn't the forcing function of the dirty dishes. The same with procrastination or laundry or whatever it is. In our
Oh, I have
lives
so much
with
laundry.
relationships, wait, what'd you say?
I said, oh, I have so much laundry to
Yeah.
fold. By the way.
Yes.
With relationships, the forcing function is like a thing that makes you think of them. Oh my gosh, I saw that flower and I know that that's my
Mm.
friend Lily's favorite flower. And I'm going to text her a photo of it and say, I thought of you because I saw this flower that you liked. With notifications, it's being served to you. There's no intentionality. And the feed too. You don't need to think about someone because they're always in your stories, they're always posting, they're always there. And so we kind of substituted the like ability to be connected for, we let social do it for us. And so there's this FOMO then, like as soon as you're not getting notifications, that you're missing out. The FOMO term, fear of missing
Yes.
out, is a big social thing. So for me, I've gone through seasons where I've been very addicted to Instagram, so I delete it, remove it from my phone, and then immediately I'm like, what's happening with my friends? Are they thinking of me? What's going on in their life? And what's happened is we almost, the people in social media expect other people to be in it too. And when they're not, they don't think of them. They don't think to update them. I don't need to tell you when my birthday was. I posted about it. And so it kind
Right.
of like replaces intentionality in so many ways.
Oof. Yes.
Wow.
Intentionality. That's a lot. Yeah, that's deep.
Yes, no, and thank you. I mean, Alec, you named some important, some valuable principles. I'm specifically, I'm intrigued by Alec, your uh, reference to it almost being the same physiology, psychology around the slot machine. And, it's similar to the language that we use in addiction research, as it relates to, you don't know when the reward is actually coming. So you just
Mhm.
consistently get caught in this cycle
Exactly.
of
Mhm.
checking and trying to live in this place of uncertainty. And I don't even know, to your point, Alec, if it's the content itself, but it very well may be the things that might be there that keep us hooked. So that is a great point. While we're in this conversation, I think this is a great time for us to pause for a minute and to hear what's happening in the life of the NBA, and especially how you can connect and be engaged with us. So stay with us, don't go anywhere, and hear what's going on in the life of the NBA. And we'll be right back. Okay, see you in just a few minutes.
Stay updated with NBA events. We are starting a 1-year peer learning and wellness group for disciples affiliated Black, Indigenous, and other women of color ages 22 through 30. Participants will experience community, spiritual renewal, and leadership support through online meetings and in-person retreats. We are now accepting applications through March 1st. If you want to learn more about this peer group, please visit nbacares.org/bywalk. NBA's mission and ministry grants are open February 11th through March 25th. These grants provide funding for disciples ministries and projects serving older adults 50 years and older, or educating at-risk youth and young adults ages 10 to 25. Additional details are available at nbacares.org/mm-grant. On March 4th, NBA's Older Adult Ministries will host the What Silver Chalice Offers the Life of the Church webinar. And on March 26th, NBA's Community Engagement Team presents a webinar called From Montgomery to Minneapolis, Organizing in Times of Disruption. Discover more and register for this and other events at nbacares.org/events.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you heard everything and that you will connect and engage with us. Listen, let's go deeper into this conversation. We've discussed the intentional design of social media platforms. We've named some places in which, from a psychological perspective, social media is designed to make it hard, if you will, for us to detach and put our phones down. But Alec, I want to I want to revisit something that you said earlier while you were sharing and create some conversation around that, if that's okay. We named you named the role in which digital spaces shape our identity. And you were saying we were teenagers and using social media in the way in which it shaped our identity and shaped in the ways in which the world saw us and who we were and how we wanted to show up and be present. So I want to we'll go back to that. As a marketing director, how does algorithms affect what we think about ourselves and shape our identities, if you will?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've touched on it a bit, but it's like it's integral to the whole thing. So we talked a little bit about communities versus like commodification, but the other word is like curation. So
Hmm.
the audience piece that we're constantly in real time calibrating, whether or not we're on social media. You know, you're having in a conversation with a person, you're making a joke, and you're seeing if it landed, and you're seeing if this is a safe space. We're constantly like I like to go echolocating. You know, like the dolphins who can't
Mm.
see. We're sending out little beacons and we're getting bounces back, and we're just constantly calibrating. And I'm watching my son, my 19-month-old son, do that, where he's like, "What can I get away with? What do you think is funny? Like, what? You're right. We're just
We're
learning
on
all the
this
time."
together.
Yes.
Yeah, when you add this algorithm to it, when you add the online piece, that is the other part that gets really interesting. So the New York Times has a podcast called Rabbit Hole, which talks about the algorithm, and it came out during 2020 when there was like a hyper polarization and politicization going on. And one of the anecdotes that really stuck out to me was one of the people who helped invent the YouTube algorithm, the For You, the next video. And he was like on a bus watching someone use it. And he had made it, right? So he's watching someone use this product and they're just clicking on the next video and the next video, no thought process, just being served whatever
Wow.
is next. And that's where almost like radicalization comes in. That's where echo chambers comes in because
Yep.
we're being served what we engaged in,
Mm.
right? Blinders, yeah. So all of a sudden you get people after the election who are hyper one side or the other, and so much of that is social media, and we were kind of channeled into these boxes. So it ties into our identity. It tells you what's popular to say, what's not popular to say, and you're calibrating based on that. To get into like a less like controversial mode, like even for me, so what's popular on platforms changes, right? So there was a time where Instagram was all about terrible filters and photos of sunsets. Now it's all videos and it's short form comedy videos. Over the years, there's been all sorts of things that were trendy at one point in time, right? I remember when what I was posting on Instagram was what Instagram wanted. It was how I lived my life. It was like photos and authenticity and longer form captions. And then it moved away from that. And I remember thinking, oh, what I'm sharing and how I view the world isn't resonating anymore. Should I change? Should I tell
Wow.
my story
Yes.
differently? Should I
Should I
start
adapt
doing
myself?
videos? Should I
Yes.
adapt my voice, my personality, the way I see the world to the way that is now trending? And I'm not tooting my own horn, but I remember being like, no, I'm just going to keep posting artsy photos. I'm the OG with it. I'm going to keep posting poetry and using hashtags. Like, I'm not a short form comedy guy. I like
Right.
photography. But I think a lot of people are constantly asking that question at different ages of like, should I conform to what is currently popular right now?
Yeah, and I think that you touch on something that doesn't get talked as much, and this whole idea of the anxiety. I know that in I think in our next episode we're going to be talking with someone about authenticity and identity and how the curation of our lives. But it is I think it is worth mentioning that one of the effects of the algorithm is also the anxiety about what we see and then second guessing ourselves. Just as you were mentioning, am I good enough? Am I supposed to be? Do I fit into this box of whatever Instagram or the feed is supposed to be? And there are, many heavy social studies about this, that how much anxiety is being present now that we've become more and more of a social media community, and
Mm.
the mental health effects of all this. And that even relates, let's not even go to poor sleep habits, because the whole blue
Sure.
light that
Yeah.
a lot of people, and I've been trying not to do that lately, because I realized that once that my husband and I, we put down our toddler to sleep, and then we clean up, we have dinner, we have some time together, and then we just go to kind of watch something or not. The first thing is like, okay, let me wind down. And
Mm.
Uh-huh.
and then we're like, oh, why am I awake still at 1
Yeah,
a.m.?
I'm gonna decompress by
Yes.
consuming memes and news. Yeah.
And then our brain is like, oh, you want to be up? Let's stay
Right,
up.
right. Yeah,
Which is
I think that anxiety piece is huge. And when you were talking about it, it's making me think about the identity and then presence and
yeah.
just being present with yourself and your own thoughts. Like I big advocate of therapy, been going for years. And one of the things that I had to unlock with my therapist was that I hated being by myself. I hated the silence of my
Yeah.
own head. I hated hearing my own thoughts. And when you're online, you're never by yourself. You don't have to be. There's always someone, there's another voice, someone's reacting to everything you said. And so it's the opposite of presence being online. We call it a social media presence, right? But
Yeah.
it is not a real presence. You're not inhabiting your body. You're not inhabiting your space. You're not sitting there with your feelings and thoughts. That's where all the work happens, right? And so I had a very popular identity online. I was never an influencer, but I was like a micro influencer. I had a couple thousand
Ooh,
followers. I
Okay.
got my job in Starbucks because I posted things that did so well that I got noticed by corporate America and hired to lead a
wow.
pilot. Like I was really good at it. And I had this curated persona and identity that was
Mm,
very approved,
Vegas.
and I hated myself. But
Mm.
online, no one knew that, or they didn't hate me, right? And so
Yes.
that was a huge unlock for me, is realizing that like I didn't like being in my own body. I didn't like my own mind. I didn't like the stillness. And so I
Mm,
had to do all this self-love work. And the only way I could do that was stopping hearing how other people felt about me, for good or bad, right? The
yeah.
ego, it craves, if one person says that they don't like you, it holds on to that the same way that if one person says they love you. But neither of those are about how you feel, right? You're just attaching to dislikes or dislikes. And so I really had to set my identity, my social media presence aside, completely cut it out in order to figure out how I felt about myself.
Wow. 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 You named something for me. And it's almost this idea of, in digital spaces, we're almost negotiating identity, if you will, because we're forming a sense of self based on actually how others perceive us or the images that other perceive about us. So I'm just thinking about how social media, it is a consistent feedback loop. We talked about the likes, the comments, the views. I love when Instagram, I'm not on social media right now, but when I was, I loved the feature of the views when I could make something. And I was like, well, let's actually see how many people looked at this reel from the
Oh, wow.
business account or, things of that nature. So just thinking through that, and even you all's points around algorithm, and my mother, she's not a millennial, she's not a Gen Z, but the truth of the matter is we introduced her to TikTok and she loves TikTok. I
Ooh,
mean, my mother probably don't know how to use a lot
we
of
have
things on
another
her.
boomer converse.
Yes, yes, yes. She may not know how to use a lot of things on her iPhone, but she loves TikTok. And it just gets me thinking about this piece of algorithm that you all spoke about. And that's how, these algorithms, we limit it to say like, oh, it's just the content that we're shown, but it really shapes the ecosystem of our meaning. Because we see these repeated images or objectifications of images or particular lifestyles or political ideals or values, and it's repeated in such a way that it begins to feel like truth, and then we adapt
Yes.
it in our brain over
Yeah.
time after having these same messages over and over. And it's like, well, our brain's like, this is desirable, this is truth.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you all naming that. One thing that I hear a lot as a young adult from young adults, and honestly from adults in general, is I know I should stop scrolling, but I just don't.
Mm.
I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. So I just want your thoughts for maybe our listeners who are feeling like that. I know I should stop scrolling, but I don't.
True.
Can reclaiming our attention in a world that is, shaped around claiming our attention, can reclaiming our attention really be a spiritual practice? Do you feel like that?
Absolutely. And before I answer that, I want to go back to TikTok real quick. I know
Okay.
we're tied on time just because it's fascinating to me. TikTok, when it first got introduced, you said your mom wasn't super socially adept, but she figured it out. Of course, because they want everyone to be able to use it
That,
easily. TikTok made the algorithm even more crazy than it was
it's
before.
creepy.
Before you felt like you were curating, you were making a choice about what you were served and shown. TikTok changed that. TikTok said, we know in micro milliseconds how long your eyes looked at something. So it
Mm,
actually broke behind the subconscious, right? You had to intentionally say, I like this, I don't like this on other platforms. TikTok, you don't have to say anything. They already know because of how fast you're scrolling or not scrolling. As soon as that happened, just to your point, point. It's telling you things about yourself you didn't yet know. I
Mm.
remember TikTok was the thing while I was in corporate America. So I made like a pitch for us to be on it, and TikTok came to Starbucks and like met with us, like their headquarters people, and they were pitching it. I remember asking like, how do you turn the feed off? And they were like, oh, you can't turn that off.
Yes.
We want it to be outside of time. And I was like, well, do users know how long they spend on it? And they said, we don't want them to know how long they spend on it. So these are all very intentional things. And we had a director who like downloaded an older gentleman, and then one of our younger colleagues asked him like if he liked it. A week later, he said, I had to get off there. It kept showing me stuff that I didn't
Wow.
like. And we kind of joked about it because we're like, oh, he did like it. He just didn't know that he liked it. TikTok was showing him
Oh,
things he was uncomfortable with.
wow.
And he's like,
Mm.
why does it keep showing me this dancing whatever? Because his subconscious was spending more time on it. That is what scares me about TikTok. So to get
Wow.
to your question, Cameron, absolutely, I think it's a spiritual practice. I think that there's this intentionality and this choice of presence. I also think there needs to be empathy for self when we're saying I want to, but I can't stop. It echoes Paul, right? Saying I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I want to do. The separation of body and spirit, like when these things are created to not have a healthy relationship with them, it's not your fault that you can't have one. So I always like to say, like, it's really hard to have a healthy relationship with an unhealthy thing. It's really hard to have a
Wow.
healthy relationship
Wow.
with nicotine because nicotine wasn't designed for you to have a healthy relationship with
Wow.
it.
Let me
It's
write
Wow.
that
really
down.
hard for you to
That's
find a healthy relationship with something that is actively trying to get you to not have a healthy relationship. That applies to TikTok. It applies to all sorts of addictions. It applies to people who are unhealthy. It's hard to have a relationship with a person who is a very unhealthy person. So I think that like you still can, right? I don't want it to be all doom and gloom. Like you don't have to delete all your apps, but you have to be very, very intentional about it. If they are trying to not let you know how much time you're spending on it, you need to be really intentional to tell yourself how much time you're spending on it. Set limits, set boundaries, and I believe, of course, that's spiritual.
yes, yes. And I think that it's uh, following on those set boundaries and set limits. I mean, now our phones, I think that most phones, I have a iOS type of phone, an iPhone. So I think that Androids also have this whole idea of setting limits of how much can you use your apps. But then the idea comes also with the commitment of
Yeah,
sticking with it, right? Because we are the ones with the brains and we can work the system around and just turn that off or say, well, one more minute or extend it for 5 more minutes. But I think that it really comes to us being willing to take that
absolutely.
step, at least to acknowledge, let me try myself. And please, just Alec, you said you don't have to go all cold turkey and say, I'm not going to do it.
Sure,
Now, if
sure.
that works for you, go for it, right? But
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some folks, it's okay. Maybe if you just realize everybody now on this type of phones, we get a weekly
yeah,
screen report. And so we can at least start checking that and say, oh, let me be critical about myself. Just as, we were talking about what we do in therapy when we go to therapy, which is looking at ourselves from a more objective point of view to grow and just to say, it looks like I'm spending a lot of time on social media. So
yeah,
it says that I'm spending, I don't know, I'm going to throw a number, 8 hours a week on social media. Well, let me start trying to limit that so that it goes down to 7 or to 6 or
yeah.
to, whatever. Um, but yeah, I think that it is a lot, and a lot of our intentionality. And indeed, it can become a spiritual practice because not only if we are trying to detach ourselves from our usage of the social media platforms, it can also become a spiritual practice, as in, how am I letting the spirit talk with me and talk to me when, as I learn to be alone with myself, just going back
Yep.
to something that Alec, you mentioned, right? Like there's, the stories about, Elijah and being able to listen to God's voice in this
Right.
sweet, small, voice, not in the thunder, not in the big things, not on the feet. Now, don't get me wrong, spirit can talk in many ways, but I think that there are times in which for our lives, we're going to need to step back
Yeah.
and just
Well,
say,
even with Jesus in the wilderness, right? Like very intentional. But then the one thing I wanted to point out is that it is often uncomfortable. For
Oh
me, it
yeah.
was literally painful to be by myself.
Yes.
I didn't, it was easier to be distracted. There's a reason we crave distraction. And personally, with my own addictions, distraction is the biggest gateway. As soon
Oh
as
yeah.
I don't want to be with the feeling because it's uncomfortable, which often is how you get through it and heal it, by the way, as soon as that's there, then my addictions are like, you want this? You want this? You want this? It feels way better than what you're dealing with. So when
Absolutely.
Jesus went into the wilderness, that's when he was tempted the most, right? That's
Right.
when the Satan came to him and offered all these different solutions to
Yeah.
get you out of that misery, but he was intentional in it because he needed to go through that to get
Right.
where he
Right.
was. Whether it's presence, like I used to listen to podcasts first at 1.1 speed, then 1.5, then I was listening at 2 speed, then 2.5. Now what happens with your brain elasticity is that you get used to stimulation. That's why
Yes.
you can't show kids cocoa melon at 6 months old, because their brain
Right.
gets rewired for that stimulation. The good thing is that our brains are elastic. They can unlearn things, but it hurts. So when I first started listening to
Oh, I love
podcasts at
it.
1% speed, it felt like torture. My brain felt on fire. It was like they were talking underwater because my brain elasticity had got used to just this. So when you're trying to reclaim presence and go through the spiritual practice, know that it is not fun. It will
You're
often be
right.
painful. It was not fun for Jesus in the wilderness. And immediately someone's going to be there like, want some bread? Like, do you want to be back on TikTok? It doesn't feel as bad as
Yeah,
this
your friend
does.
is gonna send you a TikTok for you to open. You're like, dang it.
Yeah.
I'm not wanting to. Like,
Yep.
yes, yes. Wow.
Wow. I mean, that is amazing. That is amazing. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, go.
Oh, okay, okay. No, I was saying that is amazing. And I always connect it back to our work. In the recovery world, there's a lot of conversation around reclaiming attention as like a core practice to
Wow.
recovery. And I even think as a clergy in our spiritual lives, it even the same. You all have named that. So whether you call it mindfulness or prayer or even discernment, you both
Mm-hmm.
have named that it requires intention. It does require a level of intention, and it is the separation from the stimulation, from the urgency, even from the constant demands that we have to like react or even to respond based off those notifications. So I just think about how important it is to allow ourselves to not have wilderness experiences, but have those moments where Jesus went away after feeding the multitude, and he was filled with silence, stillness, and solitude. And just
Yeah.
think about how, engaging, you all talk about those boundaries, engaging in, this solitude, this stillness, this sitting with self, and thinking through how this is just not like, well, I'm bored, but it's almost helping your nervous system to reset itself.
Yes,
And through this reset, and Alec, it is hard reset sometimes. It
definitely.
intentionally, almost subconsciously bursts, this room for discernment, this room for
Absolutely.
presence. And we've talked a lot about identity. It allows for us to shape and find out and discover and walk in the steps of who we are outside of the
Mhm.
algorithms. So, what an amazing conversation. I have been thoroughly engaged. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alec. Thank you, Betty, for being a part of this conversation, bringing and lending your expertise on why we get hooked and how platforms keep us scrolling.
I know it was great. Thank you, Alec, for being with us. And next time we will tackle some of the topics that we started brushing and scratching today. Our next episode is the comparison trap: how FOMO and curated feeds shape identity and the self worth. We will have Barbara Baroto with us. She is a mental health coach and a youth and young adult minister. You don't want to miss it because I think it's going to be phenomenal follow up to this conversation.
Absolutely. No, I'm excited. And you heard from us. And as always, we want to hear from you. So we invite you to help us keep this conversation going in the comments or even tag us on social medias with your thoughts, with your concerns, with your questions. We want to hear from you as we have these conversations.
And until then, and until next time, we invite you to take a deep breath, reclaim your attention, and remember, we are more than the algorithm. Thank you all. Bye bye.